stage are on steroids. When I accepted this reality, it felt like I was back in the 4th grade finding out that the WWE is fake. However, it's spectators like us who wants to see superhuman strength, world records being broken, and spectacles beyond the natural world. And more recently, Lu Xiaojun got popped for EPO during the Tokyo Olympics. Instead of asking, how could he cheat? I asked myself, who in the IWF didn't get paid? It's no secret that the IWF is one of the most corrupt federations in all of sports that almost led to weightlifting getting banned in the Olympics. Even though there are anti-doping rules and regulations, even anti-doping agencies, this doesn't prevent doping. In fact, it creates a breeding ground for rampant corruption where when an athlete fails the test, the country can pay a premium for it to be permitted. And some of you who are familiar with this kind of information might say, oh, but it really doesn't hurt anybody at the end of the day. There is a strict line that I draw when it comes to child exploitation, when these countries in their athletic weightlifting program pushes children as young as 12 years old to get on performance enhancement drugs. So in this video, I'm going to talk about performance enhancement drugs in Olympic weightlifting, the corruption behind the IWF, and my speculation on doping in Chinese weightlifting. And please watch this video until the very end where I can explain my opinion on how to enjoy the sport, even with this rampant corruption and drug abuse, how we can make it a safer and better environment for youth athletes to avoid their health being exploited for their country's gains, and also how the future of the sport grows with the introduction of the enhanced games coming next year in Las Vegas.
Yeah, the recovery was incredible. And then guys try to do it as a badge of honor. Well, I only took it so I could train harder, which then you're complimenting yourself because I was just such a hard worker. It's like, well, there is a little bit of a truth to that, but yeah, bigger, stronger, faster in that order. But big three is EPO, growth hormone, testosterone.
For those who are unfamiliar what performance enhancement drugs specifically are, I'm gonna give you a brief introduction. The most commonly known performance enhancement drugs are anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids come in the form of testosterone base and supplemented by other compounds such as dianabol or oxandrolone, also known as Anavar. And steroids directly increases your strength, your muscle size, mental energy and focus, and recovery from training, and sometimes even joint health. There will be negative side effects. For men, this means there's going to be an increase in estrogen production and decreasing your natural testosterone production. And this can lead to developing breast tissue. It can be having smaller testicle size. For women, it's the opposite effect, where they can have a deeper voice or increased their jaw size to be more masculine. And heavy steroid usage or abuse, it can lead to a huge disruption in your natural hormone production. So once you get off of it, your body is unable to establish its natural hormonal equilibrium, and you won't have the same amount of natural test production or estrogen production, depending if you're a man or a woman. Other side effects can include hair loss, acne, mood swings like roid rage, and it affects your mental health as well. It can age your brain, decreasing neuroplasticity, and studies show that the brain age looks 5 years older on steroids compared to someone who isn't. The second drug are EPOs. I'm gonna let Chael Sonnen explain what EPOs are.
EPO increases your red blood cells, which gives you endurance so you can play all game long. You can shoot in the fourth quarter just like you shot in the fourth.
More oxygen in your red blood cells. Okay, got you.
It's the king of performance enhancers.
To anything else.
EPO is king.
Because it's going to give you the stamina.
Yes. EPO matters. It's the reason LeBron takes it. It matters.
So ultimately, EPOs increase your blood oxygen levels via producing more red blood cells. And this can lead to dangerous health effects in your cardiovascular system and thickening your blood, leading to higher risks of strokes, heart attacks, blood clots, and death while you're asleep. And Lu Xiaojun got popped for EPO, but you might ask, why does weightlifters need more endurance compared to like Lance Armstrong doing the Tour de France? Well, it helps with recovery from one session into the next training session, especially that they're training twice a day under high intensity and high volume, that they would need EPOs to help them recover and have more endurance throughout their training.
It's like, no. If you knew what these performance enhancers did, then you would know why it does matter.
What do you think?
Strength is huge, but you know the training for that sport is so difficult. I used to wake up every single day depressed. Yeah,
that's what it is.
I mean, I would literally wake up depressed, knowing what I have to do today before I can get back into bed. I mean, it was most defeated feeling. I would go to bed some nights where I could barely get into bed. I'd wake up the next morning, and that was a distant memory.
Lastly, you have the peptide hormones. One of the most common peptide you hear of is the human growth hormone. This is used to increase muscle mass and overall tissue regeneration and healing. Other peptides can also help with boosting natural testosterone production and improve the ability of your body to heal faster. They're not as potent as EPOs or anabolic steroids. They still play a significant part in doping. One of the dangers of using peptides is that it can lead to the increased development and risk of cancer, since it's sending signals for your body to heal and repair your tissues faster. It also indiscriminately signals any potential cancer risks as well. And don't be mistaken that there's only corruption and these doping scandals within the IWF. Most of professional athletes use it as well, and this includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, and even the PGA golf tours. But they keep it at a much hush-hush level, and you can argue that a lot of these sports are more tactical, strategical, where it doesn't really rely on the athleticism and performance of an individual athlete, but it still plays a significant role in the sport and the longevity plus the performance of the athletes. And I kind of don't blame them, because if they're playing a game every night back to back at a high intensity, then their body is going to be very, very damaged, and naturally it cannot endure this amount of loading. So there are 3 main videos that I've used in my research to make this video today. And the first one is The Secrets of Doping, How Russia Makes Its Winners. It reveals the secrets behind closed doors of Russia's athletic program and how it introduces doping to its athletes. Coaches nonchalantly pushes drugs to their athletes, knowing that if they don't take it, there will be someone else that will take it and take their place. And athletes who get popped for drugs can also be easily replaced. Most of you are familiar with the popular Netflix documentary Icarus. The documentary follows Grigory Rodchenkov, one of the former heads of Russia's anti-doping labs. He whistleblows on Russia's athletic doping program and how the KGB was involved with manipulating samples for the Sochi Olympic Games. I highly recommend giving that a watch. And the last and most recent video was Lord of the Lifters, a documentary made by the German TV channel uncovering the corruption within the IWF. It also details the shady leadership of Tamas Aján, former IWF president, and how millions of dollars were embezzled into secret Swiss bank accounts. Also, they interview former Olympians on their experience with doping and the program within their country. Notably, an interview with Radikon Glonoy, a former Thai Olympic athlete who I've personally met. She talks about how performance enhancement drugs are pushed on to the athletes as young as 13 years old. But you may ask, there are anti-doping agencies and rules and regulations that prevent cheating using PEDs. So let's break down how they test for performance enhancement drugs.
You used to know when the test was going to be. Then they come out with something called out-of-competition testing. What is they just show up to, what is this? This isn't within the rules. This is not within the protocol.
I'm trying to cheat within the rules.
That's right. I was trying to cheat within the rules. That's right.
You're trying to make
it's honorable. Honorable.
Anti-doping agencies will collect urine samples and blood samples. The urine sample would test for steroids and their metabolites, and also any stimulants and diuretics. Whereas the blood samples, they would test for hints of EPO and other traces of blood doping. Oftentimes, they would collect 2 samples, sample A and sample B. If the positive came out of sample A, they can confirm using a sample B. The most common way to bypass drug testing is for the athletes to go off of the cycle months before the competition to make sure all the steroids and the metabolites are out of their system. And it also depends on the quality of the drug, the purity. With high pharmaceutical technology, they can produce new compounds that have undetectable metabolites. For example, in the documentary Icarus, they noted that China was supplying most of the world with performance enhancement drugs in a quality that's so pure that is undetectable to any modern anti-doping tests. And when the countries were no longer able to get the pharmaceuticals from China, they were getting popped left and right from these anti-doping tests. And another way is more elaborate in swapping urine samples. They either use doppelgangers of the athletes, or in Icarus, the KGB was involved in an elaborate swapping of the samples with advanced engineering techniques and undercover spy networks. There are also bribes and cover-ups. In the McLaren Report, a detailed investigation on the IWF and its former president, they concluded that there were a lot of cover-ups where countries paid tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep their Olympic eligibility. Now, I can imagine a wealthy country like China or the US or Russia can afford to pay the IWF a lot of money to keep their Olympic position. They found that Tamas Aján, the former IWF president, has embezzled millions of dollars into his secret Swiss bank account. Now I want to give you my speculation how doping is done in China. Of course, they have the technological advantage in their pharmaceutical sciences to give the purest drugs that's undetectable in modern anti-doping agencies.
Before 2008, China was the biggest producer of anabolics. It was produced in a pharmaceutical, well-equipped, good manufacturing practice. No contamination, high qualities, and all these anabolics are coming to Europe, to United States.
So my experience isn't direct with seeing this being actively done in front of me, but being involved in these China camps, I'm able to formulate kind of my own thoughts and opinions on how doping is done on a provincial level. For most athletes on the local level, when they're first entering and introduced to the sport, I don't think it's reasonable for them to give these young athletes, so around the age of 12 to 16-year-old, any drugs. Since their training is focused on technique and develop their natural potential, there's really no need to be that competitive in the beginning stages of their athletic development. And also, it's a lot of resource to give them drugs as well. You need constant medical supervision and the supply and administering these drugs on a daily basis. And at that young of an age, their parents would be opposed for them to take drugs as well. So at the foundational level, I don't believe doping is a common practice. Now, on the second level, the provincial level, I think there are going to be higher chances of athletes that are going to be doping. When you enter the camp, there are a lot of signs against doping, like anti-doping education.
Serious to make it drug-free.
But the reality is that there's probably doping happening. For the majority of the athletes, they're not on a high competitive level yet, meaning that they're not ranking top 10 nationally. They're still developing in their teenage to early 20 years. I don't think many of them would do steroids. But there are athletes who are over the age of 25 are chasing that top level position. They've probably already placed top 10, that there's a higher potential in their career growth, which they will definitely use performance enhancement drugs to their advantage. So it's not an open practice for everybody have the knowledge of using performance enhancement drugs, but rather it's on the advisory of these coaches for them to allow athletes to do performance enhancement drugs. Most of these coaches were former world champions, so when they were athletes, they were on a very high level already, and probably they've done steroids themselves and know the consequences and the risks associated with doing steroids. Taking steroids doesn't automatically guarantee that you will succeed and become champion. It's part of the equation, but not all of it. The athlete must demonstrate strong foundation in their strength, in their movement, in their techniques, having the right character and personality and mental fortitude before they get approved to do these drugs. Whereas other countries from those videos are much more nonchalant in pushing steroids onto their athletes. And pragmatically, having a base of 60 to 80 athletes and providing all of them steroids is a medical nightmare. It will cost a lot of money, not only in the supply of drugs and administering of these drugs, but also the health checkups, making sure that it doesn't have any long-term health detriments and injuries related to performance enhancement drugs. So I think the most commonplace performance enhancement drugs are pushed upon is these top 5 ranking athletes on a national level that are trying to fight for the next spot to be on the national team. And I'll say that there's no doubt that national team athletes are on performance enhancement drugs. We know that Lu Xiaojun was popped for EPO. And I think at that level, it's common knowledge where it's not really about being caught, it's about who the right person need to be paid for them to keep their competitive spot.
I mean, I could have been 21 years old and taken all the blood bags and EPO in the world, and I was still not going to be a Tour de France champion. It doesn't matter.
But I don't think it takes away the credibility of the Chinese weightlifting system. There's tons of beauty in it, like in my Chinese weightlifting explained video, that I still find it fascinating and in awe, especially the technical perfection in Chinese weightlifting technique. There's a skewed narrative in the Western media that tries to take away the credibility of the Chinese athletic system as we see more and more gold medals being won by Team China.
为什么中国运动员有这么快的时候要被质疑？菲尔普斯他拿到8块金牌的时候，为什么没有人敢去质疑他？莱德基从2012年到24年称霸了这么多年的长距离，那为什么没有人去质疑莱德基呢？
But why don't we have the same criticism towards the American Olympic teams, where they're still dominating the medal count? And I think all top level and elite level athletes are on some kind of performance enhancement drugs. And I don't think that performance enhancement drugs is bad in its nature, although there are risks associated with it. But under the proper medical supervision and being done the right way, I think performance enhancement drugs aren't only beneficial to athletes, but it promotes longevity and health in normal people like you and I, who are just hobbyists, who are looking to feel better, who are looking to move without pain. And lastly, I want to talk about the enhanced games. Next year in Las Vegas 2026, they'll be hosting a competition that involves Olympic weightlifting, track and field, and swimming. They've reached out to Ma Weightlifting to potentially recruit retired Chinese weightlifters to get them to compete in the coming enhanced games. And their rationale is, why not bring more transparency in doping and do it in a safe manner, pushing human athleticism to the next level? There's a lot of funding behind it, especially with the founders and leadership that are on the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and pushed by one of the famous investors, Peter Thiel. They're trying to use athletes to endorse these FDA-approved performance enhancement drugs, showing that they're able to push human ability to the next level and eventually sell these drugs onto the consumer market. They provide a large financial incentive for these athletes to participate, potentially earning over $500,000 if they break world records. And they're hated by the IOC and IWF because they took away the stigma and the restriction and the taboo of performance enhancement drugs that the IWF and IOC were profiting on. So it's not that the IOC and IWF are against doping, is they're against that they're not able to get a cut out of this. But my honest opinion is I don't think it will grow too much in the next 2 or 3 years because most people don't know about performance enhancement drugs and they really don't think about it at the end of the day. And when you get pharmaceuticals involved, it comes with a mess of a lot of ethics and medical complications. They have a very strong team of lawyers to cover themselves legally, although providing a lot of medical supervision and attention while the athletes are taking these performance enhancement drugs. But I still foresee potential harms and risks, especially given the financial incentives pushed to break world records, that it can be detrimental to their health, leading to potential abuse. And especially in the US, the medical system is not set up for the general population to be taking these drugs. Look at how much healthcare costs. And look how much medical corruption there are already in the United States. So in closing, I think the enhanced games are worth a try, but I doubt its long-term growth. I think it's gonna fade within the next 2 to 3 years. I think where I draw the line in the use of performance enhancement drugs is in youth athletes. We see this with this transgender LGBTQ movement involving kids to medically transition into a different gender through hormone therapy. And I think this is hugely unethical because children under the age of 18 or even 22 who are not finished developing mentally and physically do not have complete autonomy in their consent and have the knowledge to understand the consequences, especially with young athletes coming from a less educated background and oftentimes at a lower socioeconomic level. Sports for them is a way to get out of poverty, and there's large incentives for them to do performance enhancement drugs. Especially pushing drugs on a 13-year-old, I think is vile. I think it's absolutely disgusting what Thailand and these other countries are doing. And if China did the same, I would still think that's vile. Doping done right, it should start beyond the age of 22, making sure that they've gone through their natural puberty uninterrupted, undisturbed by foreign steroids going to their system. And on top of drug testing, there needs to be testing for their health, their overall health, making sure that their health markers such as cholesterol, kidney function, and natural hormone production isn't compromised by using performance enhancement drugs. This way you can empower the athletes to preserve their health and not have short-sightedness putting all their chips in their athletic career as they have years down the road after they retire to be something much more. I've asked Coach Ma about his opinion on using steroids, and his honest truth was that he was absolutely against it. Now, of course, he won't admit to me that he took it in the past, but I would like to assume that he has, and it's from his personal experience, it's an unnecessary risk for most athletes in their career and should be reserved for the best of the best. And that's a risk and burden that they potentially have to carry. And I've seen how steroids can change people. They change the way their mind works, they completely think, and it becomes a vicious cycle of constantly depending on steroids to feel good, to lift better, to train. And I think there's much more healthier alternatives. If you're shocked and struggling to accept the reality of doping in elite level sports, particularly in Olympic weightlifting, I would say doping wouldn't take away their accomplishment and their achievements. Taking steroids doesn't guarantee you to become Olympic champion. It takes still a lot of time, dedication, and resilience, hardship to not only win gold, but to even rank top 3. And it's the same stigma that we have around performance enhancement drugs that enables the corruption with anti-doping agencies, WADA, and the IWF and the IOC. By trying to get around the rules and regulations, you're only incentivizing more bribery, corruption, and cheating. When the country, the team, the coach, these organizations, and the inherent pressure to win pushes the athletes and leave them vulnerable for exploitation, thinking that they need to take steroids or performance enhancement drugs to be on the same playing field. They're vulnerable for exploitation. And what we can do is just accept the reality of doping, but make sure that we protect the athlete's health, their personal autonomy, and their consent to these medical treatments. To a degree, I do agree with the philosophy of the enhanced games, where instead of stigmatizing performance enhancement drugs, we can accept it and embrace it and find the benefits, develop the technology that we can use these drugs to improve our health, increase our longevity, and keep us moving for a longer, better, and pain-free way. And for a lot of the hobbyists watching this video, I hope this reality check doesn't take you away from this sport. It's such a beautiful sport, and it's absolutely worth doing even if you're not on performance enhancement drugs. For the top level athletes to go through all their training and to even take performance enhancement drugs is not a smooth ride. It's still a turbulent journey of hardship, discipline, sacrifice, what they have to do to get ahead and to become a world-class champion. So thank you for watching this video. Please leave a comment in what your opinion about performance enhancement drugs in elite level sports, particularly weightlifting, is. Are you open to the idea of doping? Would you personally consider trying it yourself? Or are you completely against it? Make sure you hit a like and subscribe on this video if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, have a good one, and see you in the next video.